this point, because I was studying the more traditional, the public Yang style, and then I discovered the hidden tradition, the Michuan style. And the Michuan style is the one that said, oh no, here are all the details that have in a way been removed from a lot of the public Tai Chi forms, which is, and once you see them, then you can't unsee them. Then you go, oh yeah, it's all here. But like I was saying before, you can, even if you're not doing the Michuan style, you can still bring all of this knowledge back into your own practice. Like I was showing before with playing the lute in the 24 form, right? It's just here, and it's missing all of the kind of the Michuan, like deeper hip applications. But you can still do exactly the same thing, but now your mind is a little more invested, and you can still break it down and go roll back, pluck, push. So all this information is still there. It's not just for the Michuan style. I mean, the Michuan style has it explicitly. It's more implicit and hidden and unknown in a lot of the other forms, but it's still there. You can still use all of this knowledge. You can still break down your form using those 8 gates. You can still reinvigorate your Tai Chi practice in a way with this knowledge and with these ideas of the 8 basic moves, using the legs, using torsions and spirals and kind of sending things to the side. That can still be there in your practice. I think I have a whole series on my YouTube page if you're going to go on the history and why we got there, why this happened, and why we're not, why this knowledge basically was removed from a lot of Tai Chi that we're practicing. But it's possible to recover it. You just have to go back and start looking at how you're doing your form based on these principles. And this is going back to first principles, basically. This is the building blocks of all Tai Chi. It's using Taoist physics, essentially. Like we're literally using 3,000-year-old thinking, like how the Bagua itself was constructed, and applying that to the Tai Chi form, which to me adds a lot of depth and reconnects it to kind of the Taoist roots of Tai Chi and the way of thinking that was used in order to create Tai Chi itself. So once you've tapped into that, now you can understand the Tai Chi that you're doing. So you're not just doing the Tai Chi that was taught to you, you're doing the Tai Chi that you understand based on the principles that were applied at the beginning of all of this, at the beginning of Taoism, at the beginning of the Bagua, this kind of Tai Chi, Taoist physics. All right. And to me, that's the real juice, because then you can go on your own tangent. You can go and explore whatever you want. You don't have to stick to the applications as described in the book. You can start using that shift from one trigram to the other energetically. You can start thinking of it in terms of how can you use that in your practice, in your Qigong practice, or whatever other practice you're doing, meditation, right? And because now you have that structure behind it. So it's not just a movement that you know because somebody told you to do it. It's a movement that you're doing because it's an expression of a principle that you understand. And I think that's the real juice, right, of thinking through this and kind of getting comfortable, because then the applications become, like I said, an expression of the Taoist physics. So now you have a real physical understanding of how one quality transforms into another, and how these different qualities, congregate and create everything else. And it's literally Taoist cosmology. It's the creation of the universe. You're now expressing how the different energies, the yin and yang, the primordial yin and primordial yang swirling together created all these different forms, which then further created new forms and created the world around us. So you're literally walking through Taoism, walking through the creation of the universe as you do the form, right? Because you're expressing these transformations of energy from one to the other, and see how these combinations create new things and can be expressed in different new ways. So to me, that's where it becomes really fascinating and interesting. It's not just the application as a better way to hurt somebody else. It's you're traveling through this kind of Taoist philosophy, re-embodying the basic principles of Taoist cosmology, And then all the whole other things open up. This is now you can, I mean, the 13 postures is literally a metaphor for the creation of the universe. Like literally is what it is. The 13 postures is separation of yin and yang, then the water, like in Taoist cosmology, the swirling of the water, the rising of the mountains, right? And so you're in the middle, and then the creation of the 10,000 things. I mean, so then suddenly you have a 13 postures that is just ripe with meaning instead of just being a sequence of movement that you're doing because somebody taught you to do it. All right, so the applications is kind of the entry point, is the little door that you open and it reveals the universe. So, which is pretty cool. So that's, to me, that's the real juice in all of this. All right, anything else? Writing is always going to be a metaphor for life, right? Because whenever you have a discussion, you essentially have a conflict. Even if it's a very happy, funny conversation you're having with a friend, but if you're debating which movie is better, that's a conflict, right? And so any conflict is going to follow the same rules as the ones that we've just been talking about. There's going to be a push, there's going to be a receiving, there's going to be a receive, but you deflect. All of these things follow the same rules. So part of this training, part of this mindset of becoming aware of the conflict and what is the response to energy coming towards you, whether it's verbal, physical. And so the form becomes this training ground for the emotional fighting that we're doing every day in life, right? And so it's becoming this training for, okay, somebody comes at me, I can deflect, I can push back, I can counter, and it becomes that training ground because it's a metaphor. And I have to say that I had a friend who went to a retreat this many years ago. And so he spent like 4 months up in a mountain, and everything was quiet, and they were, eating vegetarian meals all day, and it was wonderful, and he felt more relaxed than he's ever had felt in his life. But then he went back home. He went back to the city, and he felt angry because he had been so mellowed that he had no defenses for modern life. Every noise was just this intrusion. Every interaction was this assault because he had no defenses, right? So it's really easy to be relaxed when you're meditating in a quiet room. And I'm not knocking, I do it. I meditate in a quiet room. But it's really easy to be relaxed in that situation. Being relaxed in a situation which is not peaceful, that is the real challenge. Being relaxed when you're interacting with your boss or with coworkers or just a mean cashier at the grocery store, that's the challenge. And this is where this kind of talk of applications and all that comes in. This should be, and this is why push hands to me is also very important. This is the challenge. Can you put yourself in a place that's uncomfortable and learn to be comfortable in it? And so all these applications are metaphors for daily interaction. The Bagua, those 8 basic moves, are metaphors for mental skills that you can have to deal with the world around you. When is it good to do a rollback? If you're driving and somebody cuts you off, your choices are, you can go and go road rage, or you can go let it go. Right? It's an emotional response. Let it go. Roll back your own emotion. Roll back your own anger. If you're in a confrontation with a coworker or your boss, and you're being accused of something, should you let it go? Would you defend? But you come in, brush it off. No, it's actually Bob's fault. That's ward off, right? Blaming Bob is ward off because you receive and you deflect. So these are all skills. And I know for a fact that it works because I've had one of my students who was basically using Tai Chi and push hands on the phone because he was using all the same skills, having a conversation with a client, and he was going, okay, I'm going to deflect that. I'm receiving this. I'm going to push back on this. And he suddenly realized that he was doing Tai Chi on the phone with a client, right? So that's the whole other aspect of doing applications and of really digging into it, because just moving the hands through the air, it's very nice. It's good for you. It does reduce tension. So that if you're already tense, just doing a little bit of Tai Chi is great. It feels good. You should do it. But there's a whole other level you can add to it, not replace it, but add to it, which is training yourself to be calm, confident, in the middle of chaos, in the middle of being attacked essentially by life around you. Right? So that's the other big thing.